Hi, so I want to talk to you today about the importance of thinking about the next generation when we're dealing with animal welfare issues. And I'm going to do that by quite a simple talk for you today after last night and all your wine tasting. I'm not going to present any robust scientific study or anything like that, but I want to introduce you to some real people with real lives who have been participants in our successful programme. So I want to introduce you to these three guys, Mohammed Balday on the left, Cherno Amedy in the middle, and Kali Bonang. All three of these young men live in the Gambia, in the Nyamena district, and they were all members of the Gambia Horse and Donkey Trust's Donkey Club when it very first started, which is now almost 10 years ago. Just a little bit of background information about the Gambia. So it is one of Africa's smallest and poorest nations. It's surrounded by Senegal on all sides, and it's one of Africa's smallest and poorest countries, currently rating 175th on the UN Human Development Index. There is widespread poverty in the country, and in the rural areas, most of the people there are subsistence farmers. And they typically live in mud huts, like you can see here. And in fact, that picture is of Mohammed's family compound. The farmers and the families rely on their working animals for both farming duties, so ploughing, harvesting, but also for transportation of goods and also transporting people to schools, hospitals, and local markets. So the working equines are really important to their lives. The Gambia Horse and Donkey Trust is a small charity working in the area with the aim of reducing rural poverty through improving the health, welfare and productivity of the working animals. They're using a multifaceted approach, using all the things that are mentioned there, so educational workshops, as you can see in the pictures here, training of local paraprofessionals, which is really important. That's some of the trained people there from the Gambia College who now work in various different places in the government and other animal welfare industries. Provision of veterinary services, which is always required, a veterinary hospital. They run a donkey project, which allows families who are too poor to afford their own donkeys to actually loan one from the project, and the welfare of that donkey is then monitored on an ongoing basis as well. And various community development programs. All of these things are really important and essential to the work that the charity are doing. But as you can see, they're all kind of mainly directed at the adult members of the community rather than the children. And so after a little while, it was realised that actually there needed to be more focus on the children, because at the end of the day, they're going to be the leaders after us. So to deal with this, a couple of different programs were set up. First of all, the school education program, which I'm not going to talk about too much today, but the school education program is taught in 10 of the local schools in the area. It's taught by the local staff themselves as well, and there's very much an emphasis on fun in these lessons. They're very different from a standard Gambian teaching lesson. We involve a lot of dressing up, a lot of games with the children, basically loads of fun, loads of laughing. And what that means is that children remember what they're being taught and actually go home and tell their parents about it, because it was really funny what happened in school today. That's really good because it passes the message on just from the children to the parents. And the Gambia is a country where typically you're expected to respect your elders and always listen to what they say to you. And actually things are starting to change, and actually the parents now are starting to listen to what the children have to say as well. So moving on to Donkey Club, which is the one I mainly want to focus on today. Donkey Club was set up as an opportunity to come and attend once-weekly training sessions with their own donkeys. So usually they would have their own donkeys, and typically the children are the caretakers of the animals there. So they do have responsibility for making sure those animals stay healthy. If they don't have their own donkey, then they could borrow one from the charity if there was a suitable donkey available for them to use as well, so that no one was left out. And the aim of Donkey Club was to use fun as a teaching tool. So rather than it wasn't focused on lessons, it was actually focused on them building a relationship with their donkey through fun, through games, and starting to recognise that actually their donkey is a thinking, feeling animal rather than just a machine that does work for them. They're encouraged to give their donkeys names, so all of the donkeys do have names that are decided by the children. So as you can imagine, there are a lot of football player named donkeys. But it really started to make them kind of think of their donkeys in a different way, as a partner with them, someone they could have fun with and a friend rather than just a machine. So a little bit of history about how Donkey Club kind of came to where it is today. It initially started out slightly chaotic, I will admit. We weren't quite expecting the number of children and donkeys to arrive as they did on the first session. But they turned up, and we initially started out by playing games like you can see on the bottom right here, so sort of gymkhana games that you might have here, little races and things like that. And that was always good, but we always played a game of football afterwards, because we had a football and the children didn't, and we had an area where they could play football easily. It became quite clear after just a very small number of sessions that actually the main reason they were all coming was to play football at the end of the day. And they would do the other stuff, but it was very much a bit of a chore for them to actually get through that, and really all they wanted to do was play with football. So we realised that we needed to find a way that we could combine those two things and make it work both for the children and for the donkeys as well, so that we could combine their passions together. Out of that came Donkey Ball. So we put a couple of little straps around the ball that you can see in the top right there. And essentially Donkey Ball was a game of netball on donkey back with kind of football type goals. It sounds all quite dramatic and exciting, but I can assure you donkeys are fairly placid in the way they move around, so it's not as fast as it might look in the pictures. This gave us a really good platform to actually start promoting donkey care and donkey well-being. It made the children start to think of their donkeys as part of their team. And the reason I've got my donkey as an athlete in brackets at the bottom there is because it started to kind of change the way they felt about their donkeys deep down, started to develop that empathy for their animals. We had one mother of one of the children that came up to us and said, "Oh, it's really making a big difference, this donkey club." And we said, "Why?" And she said, "Oh, well, he went to school the other day and he left me with a bucket of water and a bucket of food, and I had to give that to the donkey whilst he was at school all day. And when he came back from school, I'd forgotten to do it and I hadn't fed or watered the donkey." And she got in a hell of a lot of trouble from her son because he claimed that his donkey is an athlete now, and an athlete can't perform without food and water. So she learnt a lesson from that as well. So just going back to the three guys that I introduced you into the first place. So this is Mohammed Balday. Mohammed actually came from a fairly difficult background, quite a harsh family. He had a huge number of responsibilities, even at a really young age, at sort of 8 or 9 years old, as is quite common out there. Lots of work to do on the farm before and after school and these kind of things. But he started to take part in Donkey Club when he was just 9 years old. He's now the ripe old age of 16. And he was the very first child to attend Donkey Club without his own donkey. So although he didn't have a donkey and initially perhaps felt he couldn't really be involved, there was a donkey who was in training at the centre, and she was suitable to be used, so he could come along with her as well. In 2010, he was given Freddie, his donkey, who is a girl, under the Donkey Project loan scheme because his family couldn't afford to buy one himself. This is a very recent photo, so Freddie, as you can see, is still in really good health. And she's gone on to produce, I think it's 3 foals for the family now as well, so it's also an additional income for the family too when they sell the foals. Freddie is a working donkey, so she does work the farms as well for the family, but she's remained in really good condition because Mohammed's taken on the messages that have been taught at Donkey Club. And she now actually attends Donkey Club with his younger siblings because he's away at school. Mohammed is actually known fondly by the staff of the charity as the director because he's so involved with the charity's work and he's so keen to be involved with the different things that go on that, he's sort of fondly known as the director. So I think you can see, I forgot to say that actually when I first met Mohammed, he had very little understanding of how to behave around any animals. He was quite rough and quite harsh with them, particularly with any dogs he would pass. You wouldn't expect him to be kind to them. And this really rapidly started to change as he started to realise that actually these guys all are individuals too, and they all have personalities too. And I think you can see how his empathy has developed over the years in all these photos, not just towards horses or donkeys, but also to a variety of other animals, including dogs, with a dog sitting on his lap who previously, he might have just kicked as he went past. So just a few words actually from Mohammed himself. Before this talk today, we've spoken to the guys to actually get their thoughts and their words on how they feel that Donkey Club has affected them. So Mohammed explains that it was good for the donkeys, and that before Donkey Club, many of them would bite and kick and were difficult to handle. But as a result of Donkey Club, that all became much easier. He said that without Donkey Club, he would have just been a subsistence father like his farmer, but now he does have quite high ambitions to pursue veterinary training if at all possible. He's still at school at the moment, but he's really hoping to go on to college and possibly university as well. He said the mixture of fun and learning together made it easier to learn, and that actually he feels really proud because now he's the one that's giving advice to other people, and other people actually listen to him because he can prove that he's got a really well cared for donkey. Cherno Amedy, he's now 18 years old. He was also very, very young when he first started getting involved in Donkey Club. This is his donkey Moses, who's an amazing donkey, and he was given to him 10 years ago on the Donkey Project program when Cherno Amedy was a really young guy. He was one of the very first donkey ambassadors in the area, so the charity awarded him with a medal for being a donkey ambassador for taking good care of his donkey. And this, again, was something he was so incredibly proud of that he wore literally everywhere, probably until the threads wore through, I would imagine. But, it gave him that pride, something to really feel proud of in his local area, and kind of, gave him a little bit of status as well. He was one of our original Donkey Club members, and he's won a lot of prizes with Moses as well. And I should say that Moses is a working donkey. He's the family's only donkey. He works on the farms and he pulls the cart as well. He works hard. He does a reasonably hard workload, but as you can see here, Cherno Amedy is providing such good care that doesn't affect his body condition. He has no wounds, no sores, and if he does ever start to get unwell, he comes straight to us to get help. He's also won awards for being a really good handler because he's very calm and things in the way that he handles him, which is great because Moses was quite a tricky donkey when he first received him. So just some words from Cherno Amedy himself. He explains there that Moses was difficult to handle when he first got him, and Donkey Club taught him how to use non-violent methods. So we would use the sessions of Donkey Club to actually teach the children a better way to handle their donkeys, that they didn't need to be so rough with them. And that in turn started to change the donkey's behaviour as well. We did all of this as part of the games, so it was never like they were actually being lectured at. He was also really proud that they'd had national recognition because their tournament of Donkey Ball had actually been televised nationally through the Gambia. So, they're quite famous in the Gambia, these guys. And I think that sense of pride is something really important and something that you can really, really use to kind of improve animal welfare, particularly with young people. Donkey Club also helped him to understand his donkeys better and improved his relationship with Moses. Knowing immediately if something is wrong with their donkeys is really important because historically it was something that if their donkey got sick, he would kind of be like, oh, I don't really know what to do about it. And bearing in mind this is a place where even the human medical care is very, very limited, so it's not natural for them to think, oh, I need to go and get help for this donkey. However, the Donkey Club children now have a very, very different mindset on that. And then lastly, just moving on to Callie, who is currently fondly known by the Gambia Horse and Donkey staff as Doctor. He was a member of Donkey Club from a really young age with his donkey known as Roy Keane. Roy Keane was quite well known in the area. He always took really excellent care of his animals, and he's one of those people who's a natural horseman or donkey man. He's really calm with the animals. He's really grown into a wonderful person for animal welfare. He's now 23 years old and he is part of the Gambia Horse and Donkey staff team, and he's developed a lot of veterinary technician skills. He's had a lot of training from different vets, and he also helps to run the school education programme and the Donkey Club programme now as well, which for me is a really nice thing because he's actually enjoyed that so much. He's now passing on that to the next generation. So some things that Callie said, it changed his attitude towards donkeys. It made him realise that he didn't need to beat donkeys and also how to use kinder bits and equipment. So on the very first session of Donkey Club each year, we would basically have all the donkeys come together, check all the donkeys over, and if there was any equipment that was either inhumane or not appropriate for any reason, then we would exchange that for them for something better. And again, that would give them something to feel quite proud of as well. He thinks more organisations should try to work with younger children, and I think a lot of organisations are, but it's perhaps trying to incorporate that way of having fun with them rather than it being lesson-type style teaching. He stated as well, and I think it's really interesting that all three of them brought this topic up, that the donkeys' behaviour changed as a result of attending Donkey Club. And I just think that's really nice because it does really prove to us that over time, as the children's behaviour changed and they started to develop a friendship with their donkey, be much more gentle with their donkey, then obviously the donkey's behaviour is going to change to respond to that as well. And so the donkeys are actually much calmer, much easier to handle. That in turn makes them much easier to work with when they have got to put them on the cart or take them farming. So that's it from me, really. Just some key messages that, for me, I think empathy can and should be taught to children of all communities, and I think it's really important. These three young men, I feel, are a wonderful real-life example of how long-term change can take an effect. And they did come to Donkey Club repeatedly for a few years, until they were too big for their donkeys and had to be told they couldn't come anymore. Change doesn't happen overnight, as other people have said, and I think it's really important to realise that by working with children on a regular basis and drip feeding that information to them, that we can create a better future for children and animals. I think it's really, really important to always lead by example. If hitting a donkey during training, then the child would be asked to sit out for that training session, and that would give one of our staff an opportunity to go and sit and speak to them and ask them why were they hitting their donkey, what was it their donkey had done, and how they could change that, and how do they think their donkey was feeling. So we could use that as an educational tool as well. You have to set the example. If you want them to be kind to animals, you've got to show that you're doing it properly yourself too. And finally, I think you have to establish the core motivations of what make people tick. Whether you're changing behaviour of humans or animals, unless you know what that core motivation is that will make them change, then you will never change their behaviour. We realised quite quickly, quite early on, that footballs were things that change their behaviour in Gambia. And so we were able to utilise this to get our message across. So just finally, I would say just always try to prioritise the fun and the learning will come. Thank you.